Filter the compost. Once the compost is ready and is cured or aired out for 1 or 2 weeks, it is ready for use. This compost is unfiltered and can be used for many purposes, like starting new garden beds. But there are many specific purposes, like making seed starter mix or potting soil or liquid manure, where unfiltered compost cannot be used. Instead, coarse or finely filtered compost is required. In this case, the unfiltered ready compost can be screened or filtered with the help of screens. In this class, we will learn how to filter unfiltered compost with the help of screens. Objectives. At the end of this class, you will be able to identify tools and materials required for filtering compost, and filter unfiltered compost with the help of screens. Let's first familiarize ourselves with the tools that you need to filter the compost. 2 screens, 1 fine mesh and 1 large mesh, a basket with holes, a dustpan, a hand rake, a bag, a bin, a tarp, and a bucket. Here's the material that will be required to filter the compost. Unfiltered compost. Now let's see the procedure for filtering the compost. Once the compost is ready and is cured or aired out for 1 or 2 weeks, then you may screen or filter it with the help of screens. Step 1. Spread the tarp with all the tools and materials. Set up the backyard with all the tools and materials. Lay everything on the tarp. The tarp is meant to catch any compost that might fall out of the bin when filtering. Step 2. Place the sieve on the bin. Balance the sieve on the bin. In all composting methods, you may always decide to filter your compost by passing it through a screen or sieve. Step 3. Screen with the larger mesh to get coarse filtered compost. You may first use the screen with the larger mesh and start filtering. The larger the mesh size, the more material will fall through. This will remove large particles, sticks or woody material that take longer time to break down. These large particles you may put aside in a bin and later add it back to the compost pile to decompose. The larger mesh screen will give you coarse filtered compost. If you don't have a screen with the large mesh, then you may improvise and use whatever is available at home, for instance, a basket with holes. Step 4. Screen with a fine mesh screen to make fine filtered compost. The coarse filtered compost may be further filtered with a fine mesh screen to make the fine filtered compost. This finely filtered compost is used for making seed starter mix and liquid compost. Step 5. Gather the compost fallen during filtering to avoid wastage. Make sure you also take the compost that is fallen on the tarp when you are done with the filtering. Step 6. Store or use the ready compost. Once screened, the compost is ready either to be stored loosely in a shed or packed in a bag or used directly in the garden. Here are a few storage tips. Compost is best used within 1 year. Don't leave finished compost on the ground or exposed to rain for more than 1 month. Don't store in airtight containers for more than 1 week, and try not to allow the compost to become completely dry. With that, we come to the end of this class. Let's recall what we have learnt. We learnt the procedure for filtering the compost. Here are the basic steps. Step 1. Spread the tarp with all the tools and materials. Step 2. Place the sieve on the bin. Step 3. Screen with the larger mesh to get coarse filtered compost. Step 4. Screen with a fine mesh screen to make fine filtered compost. Step 5. Gather the compost fallen during filtering to avoid wastage. Step 6. Store or use the ready compost. You have now learnt to filter the compost. With the next class, we wind up our session on thermophilic compost.